Leslie's heart trembled, and a few short words made her feel extremely comforted. She initially doubted if she had misheard. The man seemed a bit bewildered, questioning when he gained a sister he didn't recognize. The Duchess introduced Leslie to him as the soon-to-be elder brother and asked him to say hi to Leslie. Beth confidently introduced himself as the leader of the Spirit Enmity Knights, clad in shining armor. While appearing reliable, the servants thought him a bit too serious towards Leslie, and he was much taller than Leslie, potentially frightening her to make her cry. However, Leslie, with elegance, stood up, greeted everyone, and introduced herself, and the servants were impressed by her cuteness and confidence. The Duchess commented on the awkwardness between the siblings and asked Beth playfully to guess Leslie's age. Beth looked at Leslie, who seemed chest-high, and remarked, "This height is about 5 years old." The servants burst into laughter upon hearing this. Beth confidently stated that his brother Andy was about the same height at the age of 4, so adding one more year for a girl was undoubtedly correct. Leslie, feeling embarrassed, mentioned that she was 12 years old this year. And Beth, realizing the family's different height standards, found himself in a slightly awkward situation. The Duchess just found that quite amusing. The Duchess gave Leslie a pat on the head. "Does today's dinner suit your taste?" Leslie appreciatively praised the delicious food, experiencing such a satisfying meal for the first time, akin to heavenly cuisine. Unbeknownst to her, the head chef, who had been peeking from outside the door, knelt down in gratitude upon hearing the employer's praise after 16 years of work. Time passed unnoticed, and as evening approached, Leslie felt it fly by unusually fast. When asked if she needed transportation back, Leslie declined, having informed the coachman that she would spend the night praying in the temple. The Duchess gladly offered an empty guest room. She was also concerned about Leslie's burned arms, and Beth was shocked, asking who did this. Summoning a priestess, the Duchess ensured Leslie's hands were magically healed. Overwhelmed with happiness, Leslie pinched herself to confirm it wasn't a dream. Reflecting on the day's events, she remained cautious, uncertain of the Duchess's future expectations. However, she was willing to be used if it meant helping the Duchess. Tomorrow there are still more discussions and the formalization of their contract. Late at night, Beth knocked on the Duchess's door, expressing concerns about the potential repercussions and costs of adopting a child from the Marquis family. The Duchess assured Beth that Leslie was worth the sacrifice, emphasizing the young girl's desperate plea for a chance to live. This marked the girl's most peaceful night of sleep in 12 years. Compared to the cobweb-filled small dark room back home, the guest room at the Duchess's mansion felt like a grand villa. At home, she lived worse than a servant, but here, she was treated like a little princess. Early in the morning, servants came to assist with grooming and dressing, offering a variety of colorful ribbons for her to choose. However, Leslie was clueless about ribbons, and the servants teased her, suggesting she wear them all, which she naively believed. Eventually, Leslie picked a green ribbon, and the maid thought the blue ribbon suited her better. Leslie insisted on it because it matched the Duchess's eyes. The Duchess awaited in the dining room, welcoming Leslie with a smile upon her arrival. Leslie gracefully thanked the Duchess for her care, the ribbon resembling a small butterfly on her silver-white hair. "What a little pretty princess today." The dining experience was exquisite, with the appearance of the food designed meticulously, increasing Leslie's appetite. Even the servants couldn't help but admire the cute way the little princess ate. However, when the Duchess suddenly turned her head, the adorable servants quickly retreated. The Duchess found that amusing but shifted to discuss more serious matters after the satisfying meal. Leslie nodded in response. The Duchess acknowledged that Leslie probably guessed her intention to adopt her as a daughter. She clarified that thanks were unnecessary, as she might also utilize Leslie if needed. Leslie was surprised by the Duchess's directness but found it more comfortable. However, adopting a child from a noble family, especially one as prestigious as the Sporato family, was not a trivial matter. Leslie remained confident in the Duchess's ability to fulfill her promise. The Duchess provided a clear answer, acknowledging her responsibility, but mentioned the need for time. She explained the bureaucratic procedures, resolving issues with the royal family and other nobles, and, most importantly, obtaining consent from Leslie's biological parents while they were still alive. The mention of her parents made Leslie uneasy, questioning if those people truly deserved the title of parents. The Duchess mentioned that it would take at least a month to complete the adoption process. For Leslie, this 1 month would be a kind of painful torment. In her heart, Leslie contemplated whether she should stubbornly refuse to leave and endure the suffering. She truly didn't want to encounter those relatives who were even worse than animals. Despite the temptation to stay and resist, she knew it might lead to conflicts and decided to endure the month, contemplating the upcoming challenges and uncertainties. The Duchess mentioned that within this month, two things needed to be accomplished. Firstly, Leslie must avoid revealing her powers to others. Secondly, she should stay at the Marquis's residence for a month without getting injured again. Suddenly, Leslie felt a pang in her heart because she had once used dark power against her father. Although it was not obvious, if he suspected anything, he wouldn't let her go. Thinking about this, Leslie was filled with regret. The Duchess noticed Leslie's uneasiness and promptly offered reassurance, saying not to be afraid as she was here. These simple words provided Leslie with a sense of security, and she believed she could overcome this final challenge. She then boarded the carriage to return to the Spoleto family. The Duchess watched the carriage depart from upstairs, realizing that this matter was also a significant challenge for her. It was a journey from heaven back to hell. Seeing Leslie's departure, the Duchess couldn't help but have mixed emotions, as she might have already developed an affection for this prospective adoptive daughter. In fact, during her first pregnancy, she and her husband particularly liked the idea of having a daughter. The husband had even chosen the name Alice for the girl and prepared clothes for her. Unfortunately, what they got was the current single-minded boy. Immediately, the Duchess assigned a task to Beth, asking him to catch the mice in the house. Since the Spoleto family knew that the Duchess had sent someone to the orphanage, there must be a spy at home. However, it was through this that they could meet Leslie. Perhaps it was destined. The Marquis probably never dreamt that his ignored daughter would be so cute and powerful. As soon as Leslie returned home, she was confronted by her malicious sister. She initially intended to brush her off, but Ariel unexpectedly grabbed Leslie's arm and questioned her where she went last night. Leslie felt both uneasy and anxious, urging her sister to mind her own business. The argument echoed through the entire house, even drawing the attention of their cunning mother. Ariel, the two-faced sister, quickly pretended to be pitiful and threw herself into their mother's arms, creating a scene. The mother glanced at Leslie beside her and immediately transformed into a demonic figure. The wicked mother-daughter duo indeed shared a blood connection, but Leslie had no intention of engaging with her. She turned away and was about to leave without a care. Leslie thought, even if we share a biological connection, I don't consider myself her child. The malicious mother was instantly furious. How dare you ignore me? Immediately go to the punishment room with the mirrors. As soon as the punishment room with mirrors was mentioned, it became the most terrifying place for Leslie. For the past 12 years, his punishment involved standing in front of the mirror repeatedly, silently affirming that she was a useless child whose only purpose was to exist for his sister. She had no use for such a mother who treated her worse than animals. The mother then grabbed Leslie's hair, and despite the pain, Leslie struggled to break free. In the process, a handful of hair was torn out. Leslie cried out, "I don't want to be your daughter anymore, and I will never go to that room again." At this moment, she wanted the darkness to devour everything, making the demons in this sin-filled room disappear. But it wasn't possible right now. It was necessary to subject the Spoleto family to even more brutal punishment. Leslie, suppressing her anger, turned and walked away, slamming the door behind her with a loud bang and locking herself in the room. Darkness gradually emanated from her, and she didn't know how long she could endure. Her only spiritual support now was the bright hair tie in her hand. The voice that appeared under the fireplace that day echoed in her mind. Leslie felt heartbroken and teary. "I will definitely avenge you and myself." The mother complained angrily to the father, "Leslie must be crazy. Ever since she fell from the tower, her personality has changed drastically. Probably, she damaged her brain. And that day, I don't know what she used, but even the nurse Roya fell down. She said it was like using magic." Hearing this, the Duke's body trembled, as if his heart had been struck by something. Could it be that Leslie also possessed the power of darkness? So he spent the night searching through books, wondering if there was a possibility that a child destined to be a sacrifice would also have the power of darkness. However, the records in the book stated that a child born with honey-colored hair and eyes like green grass was destined to stand at the pinnacle of the Spoleto family. The silver-haired child was also destined to be the sacrifice for the first child. Could there be a mistake in this? If Leslie truly possessed the power of darkness, it would be hitting two birds with one stone. They could proceed with the original plan of sending Ariel to the royal family as a princess while letting Leslie engage in wars in turbulent regions. This way, both the dowry and the military achievements would be abundant. Thinking about this, the Duke couldn't help but burst into laughter, thinking that even the woman from Duchess Searle can't underestimate him anymore. Now it is necessary to determine where Leslie's power lies. Duke opened a book filled with ancient language, and, as he flipped through the pages, he suddenly froze. It said that the child born from the ritual would possess weak power, and by throwing it into the fire, its power could be enhanced. Seeing this, Duke burst into triumphant laughter, smirking and saying, "Indeed, the second dark sorcerer is born." Never before had he seen such a hypocritical father. Just a few days ago, he pushed his daughter, who had suffered 12 years of abuse, into the fire pit, and today, his attitude had completely reversed because he learned that his youngest daughter had gained powerful dark magic, making her highly valuable for manipulation. Awakening from her sleep, Leslie looked bewildered. The servants who used to bully her were now all smiling and greeting her. Even the malicious nursemaid handed her a beautiful dress with a smile. Speaking of which, isn't this dress Lady Ariel's? If she knew, she would probably go mad. However, the nursemaid claimed that Lady Ariel simply gave her sister a dress, nothing to go mad about. This is unprecedented. How could Ariel possibly give me her clothes? In the past, she would tear apart dresses she couldn't fit into and throw them away, all while wearing a smug and malicious expression. Just thinking about it makes Leslie angry. Leslie abruptly turned around to chase the nursemaid away, but then heard that the Duke wanted to invite her to dine together, preparing her favorite food. However, can she really eat comfortably with such a person? She decisively chose not to go, leaving the nursemaid in a panic. However, upon careful consideration, Leslie decided to see what conspiracy he might have. She refused to wear the dirty dress, though. Upon seeing Leslie, Ariel was furious. Her favorite dress was missing, and the servant sitting in her place. She wondered why the servant appeared in the dining room. Ariel rushed over, about to grab Leslie's hair when her father stopped her, questioning how she could do such a thing. Ariel, feeling wronged, shed tears and couldn't believe her dear father scolded her. She then tried her usual charming and pitiful act, but to her surprise, it didn't work this time. Instead, she received a scolding. Later, her father kindly greeted Leslie, leaving Ariel's face pale with shock. She couldn't fathom what had come over her father, and Leslie was equally bewildered. Learning that her dress had been given to her younger sister pushed Ariel's emotions to the extreme. Just as she was about to protest, she was scolded by her father again. Look at your wardrobe with hundreds of dresses. As an older sister, you're so stingy in giving something to your younger sister. I think you're intentionally bullying Leslie. Then, the Duke turned his head to scold the child's mother, questioning why she didn't take care of a 10-year-old child who was so thin. He demanded to know what the mother had been busy with throughout the year. The mother was momentarily angered, and then the Duke hypocritically reassured Leslie, saying that Daddy would protect her. Leslie felt uncomfortable, correcting them that she was 12, not 10, and glared at her father. The Duke, feeling a bit guilty, questioned why it was wrong for a father to take care of his daughter. Leslie countered that he had never done so before, only hitting, yelling, scolding, and even putting her in solitary confinement. Recently, he had done even more outrageous things. Faced with the overwhelming evidence, the scoundrel of a father awkwardly apologized. However, Leslie's injuries were not something that could be easily compensated. She stood up, slammed the door, and declared, "I will never forgive you." Leslie thought that her father had turned into this state, perhaps realizing her value. However, she was determined to keep her powers a secret, and as long as she didn't reveal it, nobody would know about it. At that moment, Ariel intercepted Leslie and asked if she had told their father about the power of darkness. Confused, Leslie denied it, and Ariel was about to slap her. However, Leslie used dark magic to deflect her hand, leaving Ariel frustrated. This move was quite satisfying to watch. On the other hand, the scoundrel of a father began to rage. Even though I've been so humble, why is she still so arrogant? With a loud crash, he started smashing things. Leslie is indeed your daughter, but you never treated her as such. How dare you let her call himself a father? To what extent can this man lack shame? He went crazy, demanding the nanny tell him everything about Leslie. The trembling nanny mentioned, "Leslie is afraid of fire." Hearing this, the wicked father's mouth curled slightly. Dirty thoughts seemed to emerge from his inhumane heart. This girl was about to fall into the huge conspiracy of her biological father. In order to force out the girl's dark magic, this wicked father was ruthless in his methods. As he contemplated how to plan this conspiracy, a knocking sound came from outside the door. It turned out to be a routine temple worship matter, so he casually declined. However, upon second thought, this might be the perfect trigger. This guy instantly changed his attitude, laughing loudly and saying, Temple prayers are the most important. Remember to bring Leslie along. Since the father's change of heart, Leslie's days have become somewhat better. There is normal food, and the once small dark room has been cleaned spotlessly. The nanny informed Leslie that the Duke invited her to pray at the temple and allowed her to ride in a carriage alone. One moment, she was worried that Leslie would refuse again, but the next moment, Leslie agreed. After all, no matter where it is more comfortable than this house. Although the carriage has a strange smell, rare occasions without Roya and the Duke nearby make the mood much more pleasant. Reflecting on the past 12 years, Leslie really didn't know how she endured it. Just a few days later, she couldn't wait to go to the Duchess's house. Perhaps having tasted the sweetness of life, returning to a bitter life would be 10 times more agonizing. In another carriage, the mother and sister had bitter expressions like bitter gourds. In recent days, the Duke's attitude towards Leslie had made them very dissatisfied. The Duke gestured outside the window, and the carriage came to a halt. He handed a paper to a burly man holding an axe, then knocked on the carriage and informed them to turn back home directly. The two women were bewildered, and the Duke explained that having an axe was to prevent the fire from getting too big. Everything was under his control. Just before getting on the carriage, Ariel smelled a strong odor from Leslie's carriage. Combined with what her father said about fire, she realized her father's scheme and felt a cold sweat. Leslie was about to make a wish for the month to pass quickly. She was eager to go to the Duchess's house. The carriage suddenly stopped with a clatter, and Leslie, puzzled, knocked on the carriage, but there was no response. A foreboding feeling instantly surged, and she realized the door had been locked, trapping her inside. Just as she was about to jump out of the window, a raging fire erupted, reminiscent of the scene under the fireplace. Leslie was frightened, trembling visibly, and she fell to her knees with a thud. Tears streamed down her face as she felt lost in the dire situation. In moments like these, a hint of her dark power could easily unlock the door, but seeing the familiar figure of a servant outside the window, Leslie realized it was all part of the Duke's conspiracy to witness her dark abilities. How long would this torment last? Instead of succumbing to it, she considered consuming everything around her. Just as Leslie was about to unleash her dark power, she heard faint knocking on the door, and in her semi-conscious state, she vaguely recognized a familiar voice.